The next session is focused on national pulse market development with a progressive update on the Canadian pulse industry's goal of diversifying 25% of Canadian grown pulses into new uses and new markets by 2025. Presenting is Dr. Julianne Curran, Vice President of Market Innovation at Pulse Canada, and is joining us today to share more about the existing market development strategy and where we are going towards this goal. Welcome, Julianne.
Thanks. Just making sure you can hear me. Great. So just want to again thank SPG for the opportunity to share with you a bit today about our national market development strategy and just talk about the industry's progress overall. The 25 by 2025 target was set by the Pulse Canada board as a market diversification goal that would achieve meaningful outcomes from a Canadian pulse industry perspective. So this goal was to see 25% of Canadian production going into non-traditional uses or markets, into value-added processing by the year 2025. And roughly this translates into 2 million tons of Canadian pulses. With that 2 million ton target, we broke it down according to the production of crops we're growing here in Canada to determine what would be meaningful volumes for diversification. This is the strategy framework that you see here that really guides our work in terms of crop-specific processing streams, target end-use applications, and geographic regions that are aligned with the biggest opportunities to deliver volume and value for the Canadian industry. With the very brief time I have today, I'm just going to highlight some of the work that we're doing specifically under the pea, lentil, and faba bean strategies to support value-added ingredient processing of those crops, and also to increase food industry use of the ingredients that are derived from those crops. Our engagement with food manufacturers and ingredient processors is really centered around the advantages that pulses and pulse ingredients bring as a plant-based, clean label ingredients option. These are ingredients that can boost desired nutrients, provide functionality benefits for manufacturers. And so in particular, when we're talking about ingredients that are made from Canadian pulses, we also are taking every opportunity to highlight how these ingredients can help to meet sustainability goals, and also what advantages ingredients that are produced from Canadian raw materials have in terms of their quality attributes for processing and end-use applications. Through our engagement with companies and industry stakeholders, we've identified some common stages that we typically see these folks go through during their journey to explore and use pulses and pulse ingredients. So all of the work that we do with respect to marketing campaigns, events, projects, creating resources are really designed so that we're adding more contacts in these target end-use categories and processor categories with volume potential. But we also want to ensure that the work we're doing is moving these stakeholders through what we're calling this engagement funnel. So ultimately at the end, we're going to see more and more companies make a commitment to pulse use and become connected to the Canadian industry. This is really important because we know it's going to take many, many products with pulses in multiple product categories in order for us to see significant tonnage use of pulses in the food industry overall. So this graph here is just a modeling exercise that we did just to demonstrate that point. And so what we modeled here was the volume potential for pulse flours if they were used in a range of food product categories at typical inclusion rates. And so on the left-hand side here, or the y-axis, that's where you see the different food product applications and the typical inclusion rates that you could expect for pulse flours in those applications. And then what we did, if you look at the bottom box here, is we just really highlighted what the volume would be is if pulse flours were included in 10% of those products that were in the global food industry or marketplace. So the products that we focused on here with the biggest volume potential are, because of consumption rates as well as the inclusion levels for pulse ingredients, are pasta, biscuits, noodles, and processed meat and seafood. So if 10% of those products globally had pulse flours included, that would result in a little over 500,000 tons of whole pulse use. So we really need to expand use of pulse ingredients across multiple food product categories, as well as in other applications like feed, like food service, if we are going to meet those tonnage targets that I am referring to earlier to meet the 25% goal for Canadian pulses to be diversified. So all our work is really emphasizing these volume opportunities, these target audiences, to generate that interest. This past year, we held 3 online events to highlight Canadian pulse ingredient advantages for these high volume applications. So we held an event on protein that was aimed at manufacturers of meat and dairy alternatives, as well as bakery manufacturers. We held an event on pea fiber that was targeted towards processed meat manufacturers, and an event on starch that was geared for the Canadian processor stakeholders to provide them with some guidance and insights on which markets provided the biggest opportunities. So we've had over 250 attendees from the food industry for these events, and it generated more than 100 new contacts for us. We also completed a project this year to highlight performance of lentil flour in batters and breadings and coatings. This was an area we were hearing to be of interest, but there was a bit of a gap in information to sort of demonstrate what would be the opportunity or the unique advantage. And specifically, this product looked at substituting a portion of wheat flour in batters and coatings for lentil flour. And the results showed that by doing so, you could experience a range of benefits, including improved texture, holding time, color of the product, reduced cook time, and also the potential to remove allergens like milk and eggs when using a lentil flour coating. And so these results were incorporated into a white paper that is being shared with industry stakeholders via online platforms, and also directly when we're meeting with folks that are interested in this area. Continuing on with another example, emphasizing that opportunity for flours and for using lentil in particular, we've developed a digital marketing campaign that will launch this month. It's targeting end-use manufacturers in those categories like bakery, pasta, snacks, batters, and breadings. And it's really focused on the power of pulses, and pulse flours in particular, to enhance nutrition of end-use products. So this is a real fact-based campaign about those nutritional benefits. Now, faba beans is a crop that is emerging here in Canada, and also emerging in the food industry as an ingredient that there is a lot of interest in. And so just in February, we held a 2-part micro summit event focused on faba beans to highlight some of the advantages and functionality attributes for the food industry, as well as just more of an introduction to the Canadian value chain, some of the processors we have here, and some of the advantages the Canadian production industry offers. So we also completed this year a technical review on faba bean ingredient functionality, and this will be published in a scientific journal, as well as highlighted through some of our online platforms to increase exposure to the food industry. Besides nutrition and functionality, we are also highlighting sustainability of pulses and pulse ingredients in the Canadian industry. This past year, we collected some really robust and detailed life cycle analysis data for Canadian pulses for peas, lentils, faba beans, and beans. And so this data has really been the foundation for this campaign that we've launched that's targeting food industry and processors. So we've got some ongoing social media, email promotion, but all to link back to the data that we have on sustainability, where end users can access this, and it supports their efforts to try to make improvements of their end use products. And just sort of wrapping up in terms of highlights of some of the work that we're doing in these strategies. Lastly, I want to just talk about really what we're doing to encourage more value-added processing of Canadian grown crops and to tie back some of that opportunity here at home. So in addition to highlighting sustainability, nutrition, functionality benefits, we also want to highlight Canadian pulse quality and the advantages that our crops here have for processing. So we've collected data on peas for 3 years now, and in our 4th year of this project, we're adding lentils and faba beans, and are collecting data on attributes that influence processing, ingredient functionality, and end use product quality. We want to ensure that Canada is a leader in having this data, and will be have been sharing this data with pulse ingredient processors, but we'll continue to do that, and we'll also be doing that through our member associations, including Saskatchewan Pulse Growers, with grower members, so that we are providing more opportunities for producers here to supply to the processing sector and deliver on preferred quality attributes and varieties that the processing sector is willing to pay a premium for. Although we can't link the volumes of pulses going into these different markets that are identified in our strategy directly back to our work, we are continuing to monitor progress just to ensure that we're focused appropriately on where more growth is needed and more effort is needed. So just to give you a bit of a sense of where the industry is at in terms of meeting our 25% diversity or diversification target, we estimate that there's currently about 600,000 tons of capacity here in Canada for processing of peas. We're also exporting about 100,000 tons of peas to the US. So we still have a bit of a gap, about 500,000 tons that we want to see going into some non-traditional uses and more value-added processing, primarily in North America, to meet that 1 million or 1.1 million ton target. We think there's still a lot of opportunity for us to grow pea use in North America. We'll continue our focus to increase demand and use of the ingredients so that processing capacity can grow further. We also are really excited about the opportunities for peas and sustainable feed applications as a big volume opportunity, and then for other pea co-products like starch in industrial applications. Our target for faba beans was to have 100,000 tons of faba bean use in non-traditional markets or uses here in North America primarily. And we're at about 80,000 tons right now we're seeing being used in Canada and the US. We suspect a lot of this volume is going into feed, but there is so much interest in faba beans by the food industry. So continuing to support that value-added processing activity, as well as work to build more awareness and demand for faba ingredients is going to be a key part of that strategy. Lastly, just to touch on the lentil strategy and the target. So we want to see 625,000 tons going into non-traditional markets and value-added processing. We feel there's a big opportunity for that in North America as well as in Europe. And we're unfortunately still, at quite a low level in terms of, what's going into those regions for value-added processing. It's right now it would be less than 200,000 tons. So a pretty big gap there. Want to continue to build that demand for lentil as an ingredient, as an option in the food service market, which is another stream under the lentil strategy as well. Just really grow that interest in lentils so that we can close that gap on the target that we've set. So that concludes the brief overview that I just wanted to provide on our 25 by 2025 strategy and some of the work that we're doing to diversify markets for Canadian pulses. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have if there's time permitting, but you can also feel free to reach out to me independently if you'd like to learn more about our work.
Thank you for your presentation, Julianne.